In a major foreign policy speech, Germany's Chancellor Friedrich Merz has set out a more muscular vision for Germany's global role. Merz today called for unity among European allies as tensions with the U.S. run high over U.S. President Donald Trump's threats to take over Greenland. While speaking today before Parliament, Merz said Germany wants to be part of an agile network of sovereign states while still adhering to a rules-based global order. He said that Germany would not be intimidated by U.S. trade tariff threats. And referring to Trump casting doubt on the commitment of NATO allies, Merz also said that he would not allow German soldiers who served in Afghanistan to be belittled. Merz said that Europe would continue to work with the United States, but he stressed the relationship must be one of equals.
We will always extend a hand of cooperation to the US. The basis for this guiding principle remains the same as the statement I made in Davos a week ago. As democracies, we are partners and allies, not subordinates.
Well, our political correspondent, Simon Young, he joins me now to talk more about what was one of the most consequential foreign policy speeches delivered by a German chancellor in years, signaling a shift towards a more assertive, power-based role for Germany in Europe. Simon, good to have you with us. Let me play part of the speech today that basically sums up this shift, and then let's talk about it. Take a listen.
We will only be able to implement our ideas in the world, at least in part, if we ourselves learn to speak the language of power politics, if we ourselves become a European power.
Simon, power politics, that we don't hear that usually from a German chancellor. Tough language for tough times, or is this the real deal for a shift in policy?
Well, you know, Brent, I'm not sure how much of a change in policy Merz is really announcing here. He described the situation and he said, you know, we've got a new world order emerging that's characterised, he said, by conflicts and violence between states and even within states. And he said a lot of people fear a loss of security. So those are all part of the sort of diagnosis, if you like. But he's got this optimistic spin. He said adversity brings opportunity. And what does he mean by that? Well, he says, well, you know, Germany and Europe, if they can be beacons of stability and dependability, especially for, as examples, as it were, to emerging economies, you know, they can sort of help strengthen the world order going forward. In his mind, at least, he's saying that things like parliamentary democracy and open economies, that's the sort of thing that you know, many countries around the world crave to be part of, and that's the way to push back against the autocrats and the imperialists. Now, you know, sort of relying on Europe's democratic traditions and its parliamentary democracies, well, that's not really new German foreign policy. So I think what is new, really, above all, as you say, is this rhetorical emphasis on speaking the language of power politics.
Yeah, trying to basically maintain the status quo. But when he does say power politics, what does he mean? I mean, how would that translate to practice on the ground?
Yeah, what he says that it means is other things that we've heard about before. For instance, increasing spending on defence and security, taking care of our own security here in Europe. That, of course, is what Donald Trump very much is in favour of. Merz highlighted things like technological security and sovereignty. That means things like protecting communications networks and so on here. So a sort of emphasis on the sort of technical side of it, as it were. He also talked about massive investments that Germany is already doing in its own military forces, but also the continued support for Ukraine. So all of that's already there. He's also saying Europe needs to be more economically competitive, and the ability to project sort of power, real power, depends on economic competitiveness. Well, the tariffs threat is a big problem for that. Also, the rise of new economies, in particular China. So he says, what's the solution? More European unity. That, of course, is something we've heard a lot about over decades from Germany as well.
In domestic politics, Friedrich Merz, he campaigned, he wanted to be a chancellor of reforms. That has not happened. A lot of voters are upset with him for not keeping his word, breaking promises that he made during the campaign. Is there any capital left for him to use when it comes to foreign policy? And I'm wondering, how much room does he actually have inside German politics to even pursue a tougher foreign policy line?
Well, I think when it comes to geopolitics and security, a majority of politicians, probably a majority of Germans, want a close overall relationship with the United States. They'd be alarmed if there were any further signs of splits in the transatlantic alliance. But of course, a lot of that depends on what Donald Trump does. So I think, there is support at the same time for the rhetorical pushback. Merz emphasised that European unity was what had caused Trump to back down, apparently, over the Greenland question. Merz said that Europeans had an opportunity to experience the joy of self-respect, as he put it, for a few days, when Trump has gone quiet on Greenland. Another issue is disrespectful remarks from Trump, apparently, about Germany's contribution in Afghanistan, which was obviously about, to a certain extent, defending the West, including the United States. Trump seemed to sort of dishonour the memory of German service personnel who died and others who were injured. And Merz said, that kind of thing is unacceptable. So this type of rhetorical pushback, I think, would get a lot of support, but obviously no escalation or confrontation in the relationship with Germany's most important ally.
And the German chancellor, he and the U.S. president, they, at least in the past few months, they've seemed to have more than a cordial relationship. And we know that the German chancellor has been criticized for being reluctant to criticize Donald Trump. But today we heard this criticism. I mean, is that really the headline from this speech today, that Friedrich Merz was so public in his criticism of Donald Trump?
Well, he didn't name Trump, but he made it pretty clear that he was pushing back on those things I've already mentioned. You're right. In the past, Merz, like many other Western leaders, has sought to have a friendly, even cosy relationship with Donald Trump. Now he says, the world is not cosy anymore. That was the expression he used in his speech in Davos. So it's evident that many Germans look with horror at Trump's actions on Greenland, in Venezuela, also what's been going on in Minnesota, in the United States. And they say enough is enough. We need to, speak out against this. I think Merz was probably reacting in that sense against the autocratic behaviour, as it sometimes seems, of the American president.
Our very own political correspondent Simon Young on the story for us tonight here in Berlin. Simon, as always, thank you.